Disturbing horror movies are great, and I've really enjoyed talking about them with you guys, but I need to take a little bit of a break from that. Yes, I've uploaded a couple of videos that have kind of diverged from that path, and they've done okay, but this one, I think this one's going to be the magic bullet. I hope that we can meet in the middle here, because we're not talking about disturbing films, but we're going to talk about some gross ones. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to another recommendation list. And like I said in the opening, we're not talking about messed up, disturbing, twisted films. We're just going to talk about some movies that are just plain gross. And the kind of difference that I'm taking here with this is, yes, some of those disturbing films that I mention absolutely could fall on either of these lists, but I think the approach that I'm going to put in your head here, so you kind of get an idea of what to expect, is I got inspired by this because of the new movie Street Trash. Yes, there is a remake, kind of reimagining of this classic 80s film that is coming out here in just a couple of weeks. I got a chance to see it thanks to the folks over at Cineverse, and yeah, I can't talk about it yet. They won't let me talk about it. I'm under a strict embargo. But if I'm making a list in relation to it, that should tell you a little bit about how I feel. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about some gross, icky movies that, yeah, again, not totally disturbing, but definitely will make you feel a little queasy, maybe a little bit of unsettled in the stomach area, maybe want you to projectile vomit a little bit if you have a sensitivity to this kind of thing. So let's hop right into it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate you finding me. And if you would be so bold and so wonderful, could you hit that subscribe button, that like button, and share this with some friends who also really like gross shit. So yeah, without further ado, folks, let's hop into this. Getting this party started at number 5, we have 2013's The Green Inferno. A group of student activists travel to the Amazon to save the rainforest, and soon discover that they are not alone, and that no good deed goes unpunished. So remember when I said that these movies might have some crossover appeal between disturbing and disgusting? This is exactly the movie I was referring to, because yeah, I've gotten the request on many of the disturbing horror movies lists to talk about The Green Inferno, and you know, it is pretty intense at times. It's a little bit, you know, I guess you could say disturbing. I don't know. I don't want you to think I'm that fucked up, because I've never necessarily found that movie as like impactfully disturbing as much as it is gross. Yeah, there are some sequences in this movie, man, that just absolutely, when I remember sitting down in the theater with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, it definitely made my stomach turn a little bit. I was doing all that I could to get to the theater to see this because, you know, it's something weird about cannibal movies, especially ones that have like a limited release like this did. The hype train was so big at the time that this was coming out that I was like, I gotta get to the theater to see how intense this thing is. And like I said, it definitely has that shock. It's definitely something. The cannibalism, it can get pretty out there. There's some subject matter in here that's definitely going to make you kind of quiver and shake a little bit. But to me, I think it just really came out to be a pretty icky movie, man. Like, I very much think about the girl who got food poisoning and she's in the cage and she has to kind of shit in front of everybody. I don't know, that just put me in an odd place. A lot of the kills, I mean, this is Eli Roth, so he is no stranger to really gory, icky kills like Cabin Fever and most recently with Thanksgiving. But I mean, this dude like absolutely turned it up a little bit when it comes to just the grossness of it, especially when they're eating people raw. And yeah, it gets a little out there. Plus, I mean, the ants climbing into that guy's face, you know, it's definitely up there for me as far as movies that whenever I sit back and think about it, it always starts off really positive. It always starts off as, yeah, I'm excited. I'll go back, watch The Green Inferno. By the time I'm done with that, I just don't want any snacks. I don't want any dinner. I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to sip my bottle of water and just try not to think about some of the stuff I had to witness. And again, It's not always the cannibalism, it's not always the gore, but it's some of the bodily fluids and other things that get brought up throughout this film that really kind of send me over the edge a little bit.
I'm so sorry.
Taking things over into my number 4 spot, we have 1986's Class of Nukem High. The pupils at a high school next to a nuclear power plant start acting and looking strange after buying contaminated drugs from a plant worker. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have entered into our first foray into Troma Land. Yes, it's kind of surprising that we haven't gotten here as of yet, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I really kind of struggled with this pick because I could have put Toxic Avenger, Poultry, no, it's not Poultrygeist. I always forget the chicken one, but it's in there somewhere. Troma has a very special place for me as just being these really wild, gross movies that I saw when I was way too young. But yeah, this was certainly one of them. This was one that I saw on Netflix back when their infancy of their streaming days. And it was something that was just so B-rate, low quality. And I absolutely was just so caught up into it. I was like, man, this is awesome. This is kind of like the Grindhouse stuff that Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez were trying to do it, but like for real. And, you know, it's very, very interesting from that aspect as somebody who just enjoys movies and wants to make them, because it's kind of got this weird texture to it. But that's not what we're here to discuss, of course. I want to talk about the grossness. And yeah, this definitely has some of those street trashian qualities. I'll coin that phrase. But this is definitely one that has the kind of, neon colored goos and pus and everything coming out of people. I mean, it is seriously about these kids who take a bunch of drugs and then they're all like, irradiated, and it's about all these horrible things start happening to them throughout the film. I mean, this movie is just chock full of just gonzo and wild effects, as you would expect from a Troma film. And, I think that this absolutely is one of my favorites. I think that is this gross, yes, but I still think it has kind of that charm, that rough around the edges charm and quality, which I know, it's weird. That I think you could totally put this in, knowing that, and just absolutely fall head over heels in love with Troma Land, because yeah, it's something special. It's something in its own here, and it's not just the kind of pussy, colorful stuff that we see. There's also a lot of really vulgar content throughout Troma movies, and this one is no stranger to it. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of sex, and there's a lot of like young people getting into more risque incidents. I don't want to give too much away because I know not many people have seen these. But there's also a kind of an abortion monster. It gets there, man. It gets pretty weird. So I will certainly recommend Class of Nukem High for this list, just on the fact that it is one I have a good time when I watch it. It definitely checks all the boxes for a grossness kind of thing. I don't necessarily walk away as like sick to my stomach as I do with like the Green Inferno with this one. But I mean, I could easily see somebody watching this and just feeling like they need a barf bag after. Slicing and dicing our way into the number 3 spot with 2007's Planet Terror. After an experimental bioweapon is released, turning thousands into zombie-like creatures, it's up to a ragtag group of survivors to stop the infection and those behind its release. Planet Terror. This movie is exactly what I described in the description there. We are dealing with zombie-like critters, and they certainly are zombie-ish. And I only add that ish because these are basically like goop monsters. Like they are melting and dripping and going all over the place. I mean, there is a lot of the pussy, slimy goodness that just will really turn some stomachs if you're not used to this kind of stuff. And there is also a lot of gore. Now, the film doesn't take itself extremely serious. I mean, it's going for kind of that campy, cheesy tone that these grindhouse films kind of had, and it's got a star-studded cast, though. I mean, we got Josh Brolin in here. We also have the great Rose McGowan, of course, and Bruce Willis pops up in here along with Michael Biehn. You know, the list goes on. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly one for the ages, folks. I love Planet Terror, not only as a zombie movie, but just as a splatter film. This is one that I could throw on and have a good time with, even though there are some scenes, especially one involving Mr. Tarantino himself's testicles. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but I did. And yeah, it gets pretty gross. Gets pretty out there. Actually, there's a whole thing about the undercarriage of the male genitalia with this thing. I'm gonna let you discover that. Point being, I really like this movie. I think that it absolutely aces the tones. It absolutely aces the kind of comedy horror mix we get here, and the effects are just so good. They will turn your stomach if you're not used to this kind of stuff, but if you love this kind of stuff like I do, you're just going to be impressed all the way through. The zombie things look amazing. The slime, the blood, the gore, it all works so well. And it's just a classic story, man. It's a very old school style zombie movie. It's not trying to do anything too complex with it. It just understands what it is 100%, and it just fucking goes for it. I mean, by the end of this movie, Rose McGowan has an M16 strapped to her leg, and she is just shooting the shit out of these zombie soldiers. And yeah, it's a banger for sure. I love this movie to death. I have loved it ever since I saw it. And yeah, I think that the Grindhouse double feature is absolutely worth checking out. Inching our way closer to the top spot, we have to make one more stop at, of course, my number 2 pick, and that is 1990's The Suckling. A pregnant woman reluctantly goes to an illegal abortion clinic, which also doubles as a brothel, only to have her aborted, mutated fetus attack everyone at the clinic. Man, this is one I knew for sure I was going to be putting on this list, but not for the reasons that I think you guys might be thinking. Yes, I know the subject matter is controversial for some of us out there. I'm not going to touch that. But what I am going to talk about is these fucking monster effects, man. Yes, The Suckling has some pretty great B-movie monster effects in it. And I think that it just all falls in line with just how wild and out there this concept is as a whole. Like, who sits down and writes this movie, man? That's what I want to know. I really want to find out what was going on in Francis Tier's head, because this is something else. I mean, just the concept alone of this couple going to an illegal abortion clinic to basically, get that taken care of, deal with that, do what they're going to do. And then to have the fetus immediately come up from the sewers, this mutated monster, because of course it falls into some radioactive material, it has to, and just wreak havoc on people. It's so wild. And I will say that I think the reason this movie lands on this list for me is this is one that I would definitely say will gross the fuck out of people who are not prepared for it. Because not only are we dealing with this by seeing a fetus fall into the sewer and then get this radioactive material on you, but then watching what this creature does, which we'll say it does get to some pretty mundane stuff with the kills, but just the griminess, the nature of this film entirely taking place in this brothel/abortion clinic. I mean, you feel it from frame one, just how off this movie is. But again, fantastic monster effects. As far as the quality of the film goes, it's nothing to completely write home about, admittedly, but I think that it absolutely works. And I will tell you, the ending of this movie, what happens is so out of left field that it absolutely shot this one up the list for me when I was considering it, because it is some wacky shit, and I promise you will not see it coming. It's something else, man. I certainly enjoyed my time with this one, and I think if you're looking for something that's gonna kind of, gross you out, make you laugh a little bit, but also just give you some of that, oh my gosh, kind of feeling, The Suckling is definitely worth a watch. And taking my number one spot, we have 1988's The Nest. Horrifying and shocking as a biological experiment goes haywire when meat-eating mutant roaches invade an island community, terrorizing a peaceful New England fishing village and hideously butchering its citizens. Two things as I dive into this film. First and foremost, I have been called out for not double-checking my facts. And you know what? I did it. I said I was going to turn a new leaf, and I'm here because I don't know when this movie came out. IMDb says 1987. Everything else I've Googled, looked for, Google itself says 1988. So I see more sources saying 88 than 87. So please don't beat the shit out of me in the comments about it. I am going with 88. That's what I'm sticking with. And this was a first-time watch for me. I watched this because I was curious if it would be a contender on this list. And admittedly, is this necessarily the grossest movie I've ever seen? No, but I fucking loved it. I have to talk about this movie, guys. This is such a late in the game surprise for me. I cannot believe I hadn't seen this sooner because, yes, admittedly, are the roaches and the things they get into super duper gross? At times, I will say there's definitely some effects in here that are super superb. And if you are not a fan of roaches, if you can't stand the way they act and they're on people, yeah, it's going to gross you out. But for me, man, this absolutely 100% all falls on these effects because there is and I don't want to spoil it, but there's an effect towards the end of this movie that just blew my fucking mind. It feels very Lovecraftian. It feels very, very 1980s, and I was so on board with it. But in general, I'm a sucker for these small town kind of, small 80s town dealing with a horrible, unprecedented event. And that's exactly what you get with The Nest. I mean, it's one of those movies that just really exudes all of that 80s energy. It feels like it is just a movie that is just stuck in that time period, and I fucking loved it, guys. I sat back and I watched this, and I was just blown away by just how much I was enjoying myself. Now, am I really hot on this? Yes. And is it okay if you don't feel that way? Like, admittedly, maybe I'm being a bit more hot on this than I should. Sure, but this is so up my alley, guys. I really, really found a lot of enjoyment in just the feelings, the tone, the effects, and the characters themselves. I really, really liked our lead here with Richard. I thought he was super, super charismatic. I kind of like the dynamic of the characters throughout this one. And admittedly, they have a very interesting angle with just how they're dealing with these mutant roaches. And the mutant roaches themselves, yes, they get into quite a bit of shenanigans that involve everything from skinning puppies to, again, monstrous Lovecraftian things. It's so worth your time if you love stuff like The Blob, if you love things like the Thing. I mean, there is so much here that will just consume you, and it's gross. It is very mean-spirited at times, and I fucking love it. So yeah, if you are not a fan of bugs and they gross you out, this certainly will be one of those movies that absolutely will do the trick for you. But if you don't mind them, yes, there are some pretty goopy and gruesome effects throughout this one. So, does it completely need to take the spot of the most disgusting film that I've seen as far as this first list goes? Not really, but again, it's a fresh watch. I was completely blown away, and The Nest now has a new big fan. So, I had to talk about it. It's a little biased, yes, but I don't care. It's my list, so sue me. Yeah, definitely check this one out if you can, guys. It's on Tubi. So worth it. I'm definitely going to be picking up the Blu-ray soon. Well, there you have it, folks. There are 5 of the most disgusting horror films that will make you sick. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Again, I was completely inspired by my recent viewing of Street Trash and just how awesome that movie is and how much fun I had with it. And I just wanted to talk about some goopy, gross films. And I think with this movie about to hit 4 folks, so y'all will be able to see it soon, this definitely was the right time to dive into this. So hopefully this translates well with you guys, and we can get these numbers up on this video. I'd really love it if this one could be a great success. I'd love it if all of them could, but you know, that's just the name of the game here on YouTube. You never know totally what's going to rock with the audience. So again, if you're new to the channel, if you're just finding me, please hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 15,000 subscribers. And of course, give this video a like. It helps with the algorithm. And share it with your friends, guys. Let us know if there's somebody out there who you think would really, really like this list, no matter how icky and caca everything I discussed might be. And yeah, of course, definitely let me know down below, what would your picks be for grossest horror films, or let's just say grossest films in general that you've seen. Again, not going into the most mean-spirited stuff. We're looking for more of the icky sticky. So yeah, let me know down below. And that's going to wrap it up here, guys. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell, and remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live, 'cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast,